When a person is days away from the end of a rope, their mind usually searches for an anchor. This photograph shows the streets of Lahore, the city where, in October of 1930, a young revolutionary named Bhagat Singh sat in a prison cell, waiting to be hanged. Facing certain execution, most condemned prisoners naturally turn to religion. They pray. They seek comfort in the idea of a compassionate deity and an afterlife. Singh, however, refused to do this. Critics and even friends claimed his atheism was born of vanity. They saw a young man famous for revolutionary violence and assumed his lack of faith was simply the ego of a celebrity. In response to those accusations, he wrote this text. It is an essay titled "Why I Am an Atheist," drafted directly from his prison cell to dismantle the idea that his skepticism was born of pride. The essay forces us to ask a difficult question. Is denying the existence of God on the eve of your own death an act of extreme arrogance? Or is it the logical realization of a revolutionary mind? To counter the charge of vanity, Singh points to his own past. He was raised under the strict guidance of his grandfather as an orthodox Arya Samaji, spending hours every morning and evening chanting religious prayers. But as he grew older and assumed leadership within the Revolutionary Party, his perspective shifted. He realized the romantic militancy and blind faith of his predecessors were dangerous. Emotion alone could not sustain a mass movement against a global empire. He recognized that to successfully debate his opponents, he needed a concrete, logical ideology. So he threw himself into an intense study of world history and political philosophy. This portrait shows Karl Marx. Reading Marx's works provided the groundwork for Singh's political re-education, introducing him to a materialist understanding of power. And here is Charles Darwin. Singh expanded his reading into evolutionary biology to replace theological creation myths with the concrete facts of natural history. By the end of 1926, his reliance on logic had replaced his childhood prayers. He reached this conclusion through years of documented study, moving from the comfort of mysticism to the sharp edges of realism. Having defended his intellectual journey, Singh goes on the offensive. He directly challenges the concept of an omnipotent, benevolent God by asking the reader to look at the physical realities of the world around them. This photograph displays the reality of British military occupation in India. Singh poses a blunt question. If an all-powerful, loving God exists, why would he permit the brutal, violent subjugation of an entire nation? He looks at images like this one, showing the deep poverty of the Indian slums, and asks another question. Why does this almighty creator watch passively while a small capitalist class extracts the wealth and labor out of the masses? He pushes the argument into provocative territory. If a supreme being intentionally designed a world overflowing with this much grief and misery, Singh argues, that being is no better than a tyrant like Nero or Genghis Khan, extracting a morbid pleasure from human suffering. For Singh, the evidence was right in front of his eyes. Observing the physical facts of global inequality and imperialism made the existence of a benevolent God a logical impossibility. Singh knows the inevitable counterargument his readers will raise. If God isn't real, why is belief in him a universal human phenomenon? His answer is sociological. He argues that early humans, terrified of natural disasters and helpless in times of deep distress, created the idea of a protective father figure in their own imaginations to cope with fear. Over time, that innocent coping mechanism was intentionally co-opted. As societies developed, ruling classes recognized they could use this psychological crutch to maintain dominance over the working population. This diagram illustrates his point about theological doctrines like karma. These religious frameworks frame poverty as a divine punishment for past sins, obscuring the reality of systemic economic failure. They train the public to accept their fate, ensuring the elite retain their wealth and power. Singh exposes the quiet alliance between religious preachers and the state. By promising an impoverished public that they will receive ultimate justice in the afterlife, the elites effectively neutralize the threat of rebellion here on Earth. This directly leads to his radical conclusion. If a society wants to successfully overthrow its physical oppressors, the revolutionary movement must first dismantle the religious ideologies that justify that oppression. In Singh's view, a true revolutionary mind requires two indispensable traits: independent thinking and merciless criticism. He warns that blindly accepting the dictates of any leader or an invisible supreme being simply because of their perceived authority stunts human progress and dulls the brain. This brings us back to the stark reality of his prison cell in Lahore. Shortly before his trial concluded, a friend told Singh that as the final days approached, his vanity would evaporate and he would inevitably begin to pray. Singh's response was an absolute refusal. He stated clearly that a deathbed conversion motivated by fear would be an act of degradation and selfish cowardice. Devout prisoners walked to the gallows expecting the luxurious reward of paradise or rebirth. Singh faced the rope knowing it meant utter annihilation, offering his life for the cause with no promise of a cosmic reward. For Bhagat Singh, true liberation rests on the individual. To cast off the yoke of slavery, humanity must discard the opiate of faith, stand on its own feet, and face the harsh realities of the world with undeniable, clear-eyed courage.